So, up next, it's going to be our second series of the night. It's going to be dooi versus GNiK. We're going over into the Americas. I'd like to welcome everyone back to week number 9 of Stage 4 Quake Pro League. My name's Ketchup, and I'm joined by the always wonderful Flea. Now, this matchup, I'm curious to see how GNiK can really fare here. I think we have some pretty interesting champions, actually, being used. We'll get into that in a couple of seconds. But definitely a clash of styles between these two. I think it's definitely safe to say, Flea.
Absolutely. dooi, widely known for being one of the most defensive players in the league. We've seen time and time again that he is completely comfortable with winning a game by just one frag. Not a one frag difference, but just getting one frag throughout the entirety of the map, whereas GNiK is a much more aggressive and confrontational player. Now, looking at these players' match history, they played not too long ago, back at the Stage 3 finals, where it was dooi taking the win 2-0 over GNiK, and I believe actually knocking him out of the tournament. So this might just be GNiK's opportunity to get revenge for that one.
Now, if we're looking at these two players side by side, I really think Clash of Styles is a fair comparison, because GNiK can be incredibly aggressive when the time calls for it, and doooi's the kind of player that goes. Although, to give him his credit, he's absolutely not one-dimensional. He is a player that is just not likely to be as aggressive as other people, and he's very, very, very comfortable to just kind of set up shop with a small lead and play the game of hard to get. And I think his champion picks really emulate that, especially going into our first map, which is going to be Blood Covenant, potentially quite a high octane matchup because it's Anarchy versus Athena as our first map. However, someone like dooi is more likely to take Athena and not use it to be aggressive and to constantly push and play that crazy combat style. We've seen, even with Avec earlier today, the strength Athena can bring when you're playing a game of being hard to chase down.
Absolutely. This is going to be difficult for GNiK because, yes, he has got the horizontal mobility, you've got the injection, the speed boost, of course, the air control as well. But when it comes to the vertical movement, Athena will school you back and forth any day of the week. So if he has to chase his opponent, it is going to be difficult to keep track and catch dooi if he gives up the lead. So that is going to be one of the key focuses for GNiK going into this map. Do not be the first one to get a few frags behind, because if you get to that point, then you're out of luck. The second map after this one will then be Corrupted Keep. Pretty standard picks. We're going to see the Ranger go up against the Eisen before finally concluding on Awoken, where dooi plays a fan favorite Scale Bearer up against GNiK's BJ.
Of all the maps, I think I'm looking forward to Awoken the most, because we have just the Scale Bearer from dooi. It's not a pick that you see all that often on Awoken, and watching dooi play the Scale Bearer could be quite unique in a way, I suppose, and definitely keeping an eye out on that one. But here's the question. If we're going on predictions, I know that GNiK he hasn't been the most successful player. There's no getting around that fact. However, with these two players in particular, I'm not particularly sure how to call it, I will be honest, because we'll just have to really see how that first map goes to see how the two of them weigh up, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if I were a betting man, I'd probably put it on dooi. The man has had a pretty decent track record taking down the Hang this stage as well. So clearly he knows his business, whereas GNiK so far has yet to get a win in Stage 4. Now, of course, there have been a lot of close matches. Time and time again, we see GNiK get one map and then just barely losing in the final one, and ultimately still dropping it all, letting it slip away in between his fingers. But this might be the opportunity. And also, it could be a good opportunity and an important one as well. We're getting so close to the end of Stage 4. GNiK still has a shot at getting out of that relegation zone, but he's got to start winning. Big time, too.
I think we're going back to lobby. I think there's potential that the players might be on the incorrect server. I think they noticed their ping was quite high, so we're going to quickly go for a quick restart. But yeah, on that note, I guess to really continue the conversation, that's I think the hardest thing about GNiK is that he's so close but so far every week. And that's the element of GNiK that it's like, when we're talking about GNiK maybe reaching that next level, it's the ability to finish it, to close it out. And I suppose really the clutch factor. You've got to have a lot of clutch to be able to do that consistently. And because GNiK, he's not as competitively seasoned as a lot of people in Pro League, and he is one of those players that is always on the grind, always on the rise. The question is, when is he going to get that result? that elevates him to that next point, because he's right there every single time, but he's not there. And that is what needs to change. And it almost feels like there is going to be that one victory, that one result that almost lets him get over that. At this point, maybe even a mental barrier. Like, I don't even know at this point. But we'll see if he can ever obtain it, I guess. Maybe against Dooi. We'll see.
I mean, I think this is just a pretty common theme when we look at players that manage to get into the league through, of course, the relegation process by winning in challengers. If you look at, say, Xanaku, I think you can kind of see the same problem there, right? Also someone, he's going to be playing later today as well, if I'm not mistaken, but he's a player who very often, just like GNiK, gets so close to a win, tantalizingly close to finally getting himself that starting victory. But then so often, especially against the better players, he just falls short at the last possible second. So pretty common trend, I feel like. And this is something that experience, the difference in experience between some of the players that have been around for years in the top level, and then you've got these newcomers, it still affects the outcomes quite a lot.
And Dooi definitely pumps himself up as well. He's one of my favorite players to watch in like an offline setting, because when he wins those maps, and especially when he actually gets those series wins, he's one of the only players that we have that really pops off. And you know, like it's not, he's definitely not doing it just for show either. You can just tell that he's very pumped. He's very into it. Clearly, it means a lot to him. And I always love watching players that it definitely sort of just comes out when they win these big sets that really mean a lot to them, because you can see how much it means to them. Dooi, absolutely one of those examples. GNiK had to go for a quick game restart. He is back in the lobby now, so I think we're going to be going straight back online, and we'll see what happens in this Blood Covenant. It's going to be a matchup of two champions that are crazy fast-paced. You've got the Anarchy, you've got the Athena. I am interested to see really how Dooi uses the Athena. Is it going to be a traditional game of Athena on this map, or is Dooi going to play it, the Dooi way at this point? I guess we'll find out. Thanks for sticking with us so far. Remember, everyone, if you like what you see, get involved on social media. Use the hashtag Quake Pro League. Let us know who your favorite players are, what your favorite series of the day was. Anything, really. At this point, just let us know about it. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, just to pick up on what you just said, I think we might see a bit more of an aggressive Dooi this time around, particularly because I think he probably feels that defensive playstyle works best against opponents that he thinks are among the top of the NA bracket. Whereas when he's going up against someone like GNiK, he might favor his shots in a more aggressive playstyle a bit more. Because yes, winning by one frag, it's a win just the same, but it's risky. Something can go wrong so quickly, so easily towards the end that lets you slip everything away. So I think we might be seeing a bit more of an aggressive Dooi nevertheless, but of course it all remains to be seen. As you said, thanks for staying with us. We are loading into the final map right now. This is the first matchup between Dooi and GNiK, starting things off on Blood Covenant.
It's kind of like what I said earlier, that Dooi absolutely is not a one-dimensional player. Like, he's known for playing a defensive style, but he has had maps where he's almost completely gone in the opposite effect, because he is capable of doing that. He is going to have to force the fight to break out. Kind of has unfavorable weapons to take it, though, with only a plasma and a rail. In that situation, I mean, yeah, he was going to get LG'd all day, every day by GNiK, who looks like he's actually trying to potentially push in a little bit more. Misses the rail. That one's unfortunate, because fresh off a jump pad, you really want to be able to pick down that free damage. GNiK misses a second rail. Would have definitely taken out Dooi, allowed GNiK to pick up the Mega instead. But looks like he's going towards heavy. He's quite weak. It's quite risky to stick around here with Dooi having a rail in hand.
I think GNiK actually had a pretty decent opportunity to get another frag right there. Dooi had nothing except for the Tribolt, which couldn't reach him, and the starting machine gun. GNiK had the railgun and a bunch of other weapons as well. So I think that GNiK running away after Mega, or just before Mega spawned even, gave up a really good opportunity to punish Dooi a lot more. And now Dooi, using the grapple hooks, that mobility, the verticality to get himself heavy first, Mega second. So he's got a pretty good rotation going on. Looks like GNiK doesn't want to contest right away. He's just gonna give it up to the American.
Looks like we're down towards heavy for another time as GNiK takes a ton of damage. And even after that injection, he is not safe. Far from it. And that's why he gets a really tiny rocket jump. Really, the only thing he could do to save his skin if Dooi was going to set up shop there, look for a rail to finish the job. But he's still weak. Tender. Oh, good shot from Dooi.
I like that play a lot. Very calculated from dooi. Nice rail as well. Dooi used a little bit of rocket damage to not only accelerate slightly, but also just do just enough damage so he could deny the small armor down below, as well as he will find GNiK off the spawn once more. Heavy will be lost to the anarchy. GNiK, no dot, will be trying to get out of this situation. Still manages to do a lot of damage, actually going in full aggro. dooi. That rail, that was his saving grace. If he had missed that shot, he would be over and done for right now. GNiK, is he going to push this? He's got the rockets. Looks like he will be a bit passive once again.
Both players have a similar idea. That on top and underneath, exact same position, but it looks like when we're talking about position and heavy, dooi is the one that's in a better spot for it. GNiK simply going to allow it to be taken at this point, actually. Doesn't really want to challenge it too much. You can see the speed they're playing this right now. And this is definitely the kind of matchup you expect. Two champions that are incredibly fast-paced. But doooi's looking for those rail shots, but GNiK hasn't really given up a single one yet. That rocket is a fantastic start.
I kind of feel like GNiK is giving his opponent a bit too much respect. He is allowing dooi to move around the map a bit too much. The damage is pretty much equal right now, but it's actually GNiK who is just staying away from these major items, and he has had plenty of opportunities to do a lot more damage to his opponent, but instead he just left the fight at that. And that is giving dooi so much breathing room that he is getting most of the items. So damage pretty close, but it's dooi who now has already a pretty sizable lead when it comes to picking up the major items on this map. So GNiK, he has to keep pressuring, because if he doesn't, dooi is going to utilize and abuse those grapple hooks to deny pretty much all of the major resources.
He spent a lot of time here trying to almost avoid angles from dooi, that he's not really having any angles himself to get damage. I mean, look, every time there's a fight breaking out from range, GNiK's not really in a position to return fire or get anything for that matter. Dooi's kind of just running around looking for these angles, hitting it, gets caught on the jump down, but who cares? He knows he's got the damage to finish it off. And dooi continuing this lead. GNiK almost looks a little bit, dare I say, afraid of dooi on this map so far.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying. Giving too much respect to his opponent, not challenging when he should be, not pressuring hard enough when he does get an advantage in some of these engagements. And of course, dooi's got so much mobility. Just zips on out any tricky situation and then ends up being the first one to a major item as well. This is good from GNiK though. Still peeking right there, trying to land an excellent rail angle. Missing though, but that would have been some of the plays that we need to see more of. GNiK fumbling the movement right there. GNiK thought that dooi would just go for Mega straight off the bat, and so he dropped down before making it all the way up. But in doing so, he allowed dooi to pick up Mega and get the better angle for dealing damage right there. So, bit of a misplay, fumble of the movement.
Pretty tricky to hit some of these rails. Looks like GNiK's able to get one. The 5-minute warning, I mean, we've been talking about dooi's pretty big lead this whole time. GNiK has every opportunity to tie things up. He still has time to do it. Oh, that was a sick play. Absolutely phenomenal opportunity there for the rocket. dooi setting it up, and GNiK kind of falling for it hook, line, and sinker.
I mean, dooi is not only known for just his defensive plays, but you need to be able to put out the damage to keep up with that kind of a playstyle. These defensive rockets, they need to be huge, and indeed they are. Rails being exchanged again too. GNiK really struggling to get a foothold right now. When he does manage to pick up an item, dooi is right there to punish him so badly, time and time again.
We can never forget, dooi's execution with these abilities combined is some really impressive stuff, and always has been. dooi was one of the first players in Quake Champions to really relish the champion abilities, the element of the game that you had to get to grips with, right? And use it in part of combat, part of fights, movement, whatever it is. dooi was absolutely... His game plan evolved around champions from the get-go. So these kind of champions like Athena, I mean, he's going to have no issues learning Athena at all at a high level.
Back to 0 goes GNiK. The suicide rockets in close quarters are always a dangerous endeavor. And dooi knew that just closing the gap, tanking that shot with his face, Needed little more than that. And these rails from dooi, phenomenal as well, because these are not easy shots to be hitting on a slicky champion like Anarchy, but still hitting over 50% railgun accuracy. GNiK struggling a bit more than that though. Unable to land any rocket damage right there. That's one of the strengths of the grapple hook. If you can get yourself airborne, it's so difficult for your opponent to land rockets. And GNiK, that was just about all he had to work with. Too little time to switch to LG when dooi gets in your face that quickly. And that is giving the American yet another frag to work with.
Looks like he's going in for even more push. dooi trying to force GNiK away from the Mega. And I talked about... Oh, nice little angle there. Oh my days. Another. dooi with the chase. He should be able to finish at this rate. No escape for GNiK. Another frag's going to go down. dooi 6-0. And at this point, I mean, we're reaching a stage now where GNiK is, by all accounts, running out of time.
And of course, even if GNiK finally manages to mount a bit of a comeback, dooi still has so many frags as a buffer, as well as the grapple hook, and that will allow him to steer clear of his opponent in so many of these situations that it's hard to imagine GNiK being able to make anything happen this late into the map. dooi absolutely not switching to the defensive just yet though. He's still continuing his rotation around the map, knows he has heavy up just behind him, doesn't want to pick it up just yet. Wants to do at least a bit more damage. And GNiK, right now, he wants at least some frags just to get a bit of momentum going for the next map.
You just can't allow dooi to completely run away with it, because he'll be going into the next map feeling real good. And, you know, GNiK, there's almost that situation of heavy sigh and, okay, let's do the next one. But with the way that dooi has just been playing this entire map, always able to get these. He's getting perfect reads on GNiK too. Like, how many of these preemptive rockets are doing like minimum 80 damage? Even this one, can GNiK get a frag? Oh, he gets the rail. Okay. Okay, GNiK securing another one. I mean, he can't win the map at this point, but any frags to at least bring his spirits back up at this stage.
Yeah. Very messy engagement that was rather. Oh, he's gonna catch dooi again. Needs a little bit more damage, misses the rail that would have gotten him the frag. I like that rocket jump. Fortunately for him, got caught up on a bit of scenery that allows dooi to escape, but I like the place. We don't see enough of those, of course. Very late into the map, GNiK knows at this point it's over and done with. He just wants to at least lift his spirits a bit, as you said, as we are shaping up to get into map 2 already. That will be dooi clutching to his life, picking up heavy as well, and that should basically guarantee that this will be a 6-1 scoreline. Well played, dooi.
And well played all round. dooi kind of really doing what you pointed out at the very start of the map about not really playing highly defensive, actually. He played around GNiK. It was a game of constant predictions, knowing where GNiK was going to be. GNiK definitely flying around one too many corners into those rails, into those rockets, like those setup rockets from dooi. And then absolutely, we have to talk about, I think, his rail accuracy on a fast target like Anarchy. Definitely not easy to do, and dooi having some pretty phenomenal rail shots throughout the entirety of that map. But all round, looking more comfortable and playing around GNiK more than GNiK was able to play around dooi. And he gave up a lot of map in kind of the first half. You know, dooi was able to just get all the items that he wanted, hit rails when necessary. And GNiK was never able to return fire. He was never in the right position to really get anything.
There were some sparks of life from GNiK, some moments where he looked really good, landed some beautiful shots, but overall, he just gave his opponent too much respect. We started calling it out, I think, just 2-3 minutes into the map. GNiK just having the upper hand at a situation, and then just not pushing it. I mentioned it at the very beginning. GNiK got the first frag. Second time around, all dooi had to work with was the tri-bolt and the starting machine gun. open range all the way over to Mega, and it was GNiK who had the railgun, who had the heavy machine gun, and he just turned around and got out of the room before Mega spawned. He could have punished that a lot harder, and there were several of these situations where he had the better positioning, he had the better weaponry, but he just allowed dooi too much respect, and that gave his opponent just enough control of the map to just zip around and get that early lead when it comes to armor and health pickups, and GNiK just wasn't able to contest after that.
Now, we're going into map 2, Corrupted Keep. It should be Ison versus Ranger, and it's dooi rocking the Ranger, so we might get to see a little bit more, the return of the dooi orb, as always. But I mean, yeah, matchup-wise, dooi, with how he's able to play, I think that the orb fits dooi's style of play so wonderfully, and it always has done. It's why he's always seemed to really use this champion for, I mean, as long as he's played Quake Champions competitively. Ranger was always one of his main champions back then, and the emphasis on the orb was a massive part of his game plan. And you can still have these crazy good orb plays. On a map like this, the instant repositioning can help you out a lot when it comes to getting 2 major items at once on a map like this one. But we'll see how this one's going to go. dooi looking like the favorite after that first map, just looking more comfortable. And GNiK, I wonder if he's going to be a little bit more assertive in this map. We'll see. Corrupted Keep, as we've said many times, that unique experience, isn't it?
Yeah.
No rail, small, brawl heavy, going to have a lot of fights. He who shoots better will win.
It's definitely going to be interesting to see if GNiK has a better shot at taking home this one, because this map lends itself to being much more of a brawl than Blood Covenant, where dooi just played the long game, landing a lot of rails, clever positioning, but that is a lot more difficult to do on this map, of course, in part because there is no railgun whatsoever, the only map in the pool to lack one of the major weapons. And GNiK immediately, just like we saw on the previous map, starting off aggressively, dropping down that turret to keep his opponent occupied as he deals most of the damage. GNiK so early for Mega though.
Now dooi setting up shop for this heavy. Now going to be in his favor. Either item's going to go to either player here, and this is that kind of classic. Corrupted Keep can start to go fast, but at the very beginning, when neither player really has a footing, like this is that moment where it'll be a little bit more slow-paced. Looking for that opening damage. Looks like GNiK is going to be the one to secure it, but the 100 damage from dooi almost instantly isn't going to use the orb in this situation. Not really worth using it. Wouldn't give him too much of an inch. And did I see what I thought I saw there from GNiK?
It was suspicious. I don't want to go too far with it. Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to put on my tinfoil hat, but I'm pretty sure I saw something there.
I saw something too. Here we go.
That's the spirit.
dooi though, once again caught out without the lightning gun, and that was a very important factor as to how he lost the previous engagement. Oh, the point blank. Yeah, GNiK a bit too aggressive, forcing his way through the door. dooi, perfect read right there. A bit of rocket damage upon entry. Wow. Little trade. Okay.
Both players actually got a sick rocket there. The trade was excellent. But GNiK actually getting a favorable spawn. Hasn't got a super go out of his way to get a rocket launcher, so he can now get the Mega, go towards, take a little bit more of the denial. And he can deny easily because he spawned near the rocket that was on the ground.
And this is a really good position for GNiK because he knows dooi does not have lightning gun, doesn't have rocket gun or rocket launcher. He doesn't have either of the main 2 weapons that you need on this map. So he wants to take good advantage of that. Good opening damage there as well. dooi will be able to escape. Can GNiK catch him? This could be an opportunity for the Canadian. First one to drop onto Mega. And he's not gonna chase. Going for the heavy machine gun instead. That is an important weapon, but I feel like, again, maybe giving his opponent too much breathing room right there. He could have pushed harder and done more damage, and now dooi mercilessly turning it around. The orb is going to get stuck on the wall. Both players weak. It's dooi with the advantage and the better read to get himself in the lead.
The only thing about that fight that did not go in the favor of dooi was that dire orb getting stuck on the wall. And dare I say, quite fortunate for GNiK that actually happened, because he played that fight perfectly. It was 100 damage, and then it was like 97, I think, on the rocket after that. And then just finishing the job, getting a good read on the drop down. GNiK not as patient. dooi having the last laugh in that respect. And as we now move on, at least GNiK has been able to get himself some important weapons fresh off the bat.
It's, of course, a key part of achieving victory in Quake. You need those weapons. GNiK has got both of the main ones. dooi, though, lacking the lightning gun, and that is something that GNiK is acutely aware of. Something I bring up frequently. Corrupted Keep is one of the few maps where you can really play a strong weapon denial game. Not just item denial, but weapon denial. GNiK knows that if Dooi makes a move onto LG, that's a bad place to be. You can easily get stuck behind that statue at the teleporter exit, so he wants to keep control of the center area. If Dooi does moves in to get himself the lightning gun, GNiK will be ready to punish it. Seems like he will prioritize Heavy, though doesn't have the exact timing. Dooi looping right back around. This could be good for GNiK. But he positions himself away from the item. But the rocket!
Only 16 damage on the super shotgun. That was, yeah, that was a situation. He pushes down there to get the shotgun blast, gets minimal damage. Definitely was banking on more on that single shot. Had the right idea, just didn't get the spread. And now a 3 for 3 for both players.
Yeah, Dooi definitely expecting more in that situation. Just GNiK time to have timing on Heavy, positioned himself away for the item, and that allowed him to sweep in and pick it up. So wanted to make advantage of that stack benefit he had, but ultimately Super Shotgun failed him, whereas the Raw failed to his opponent. The orb was out. Decent damage from both players. Dooi, though, missing the lightning gun, once again proving to be fatal. And GNiK, a 1-point lead. I don't know if it was intentional to drop down and not make it up the stairs, but it probably saved his life, at least for a moment.
Can he survive now? That is the question. Oh, that rocket almost said no. Excellent start there, and dropping down towards Heavy. This is an opportunity for GNiK to really cement something. Dooi's going to be able to collect that lightning nail gun. The denial on the lights again, continuing GNiK. Can he find him? Can he get some uncontested damage? I mean, one of the problems he's always had is that when these fights happen, regardless of his own stack, Dooi is hitting some phenomenal shots. They are doing as close to max damage as you can really get on a consistent level. And then he throws the orb on top, so knowing that he's going to have that extra degree of burst that you don't have because you didn't have an orb, you have to make sure that if you're going into this fight, you are significantly stacked over him.
Oh yeah, of course. The orb is such an equalizer because of the quick sudden damage you can do with it. If you're not prepared for that, it can really screw you over. Now GNiK, of course, he does have that turret to work with, but still, that takes a little moment to deploy, set up, get aim. So it's not quite the same in terms of quick damage. You need to be a little bit more calculated when you're using the turret and set it up before taking an engagement. Now we've seen the game slow down a fair bit right now. GNiK is the one who's in the lead. Nice little bit of machine gun damage right there. And I think GNiK will be perfectly content winning this by 1 frag. He doesn't want to put himself in any bad situations right now, as he drops down highly aggressively, and the orb rocket combo so strong. Of course, Dooi playing Ranger, you take less self-damage when you hit yourself with a rocket of your own, so that works wonders in these close quarters.
Now from this position, Dooi's almost kind of flipped the tables. He's now the one that's listening out. Looked for an opportunity to hit one of those, opening rockets that I think GNiK wouldn't have been able to contest. Definitely seems to be a little bit lost. I think the spam around those corners, Dooi had all the information that he needed to know that maybe he doesn't know where I am right now, and he just sets up that free rocket. But what does it mean for him as we now back off? The Heavy is going to go to Dooi. Ooh, not a lot of rocket damage. The fake jump pad springs the attack and gets some free damage. Nice play there from Dooi.
We're about to enter the final 2 minutes of this map. Things are all tied up right now. Dooi, having the better position around the center of the map, will secure Mega first. Heavy could very well be going to GNiK. Gonna race his opponent to it. Now we've basically got a perfectly split map right now. Neither player really wants to put themselves in a risky position, and neither has to. Things are all tied up. No one's under pressure to really chase down his opponent. Still, they're gonna find each other over at rockets. Decent damage from both players. GNiK doesn't have the exact timing on the Mega. It's about to spawn right behind him. given that he doesn't know exactly when, he doesn't want to take the risk to go for it. 15 points of health, one bullet will do it, and Dewey knows that his opponent's stuck between a rock and the lava, in this case, putting himself one frag ahead.
But that one frag might not last long at this stage. We have a minute and a half left on the clock. GNiK, there's not a lot of work to do. On a map like Corrupted Keep, you can absolutely get that final frag. However, the fight's going to break out. Minimal damage either way. GNiK with no armor again. Terrible situation to be in. He is hanging around near heavy, likely to take it. But what does it mean? He goes through the teleporter anyway. Dooi, right as he opts to disengage and take this mega. The big chase comes through, actually. Now, does Dooi start to play more defensive? Does he look for one more frag, or does he play this game of hide and seek? He's playing around. The retreating game. I think we know what one he's chosen so far. Oh, the surprise! Oh,
GNiK.
what a good rocket. Excellent rocket. He goes up the jump pad as well. No, the trade! Kamikaze indeed. Oh, no. Now, he's not out of it, but yeah, that sucks. That really sucks.
GNiK put himself too far back into the room. His LG couldn't land anymore. He wasn't expecting Dooi to be just around the corner, so he positioned himself too far to deal optimal damage, and it allowed Dooi to set up a beautiful trade. Here we go, though. GNiK smelling blood, taking a big rocket there, and another one to seal the deal. He's gonna call the GG 10 seconds early, knowing, of course, that that is indeed the end. And that'll be Dooi getting that 2-0 on the board already.
And knowing Dooi, there was probably a little woo.
Yeah.
I guarantee it. There was at least one. Maybe there was at least one. Maybe two. Maybe two. But Dooi is going to get that, at the very least, the victory on GNiK. And, I mean, I honestly, I think one of the biggest things that seems to separate the two right now is composure. Those moments where things can really start to potentially slip away from you or get out of hand, even up until those final moments. Dooi, knowing that if this fight doesn't go right, you know, I'm the one that's going to maybe be in a worse situation. He still has the peace of mind to wait for GNiK to go around the corner. He knows that GNiK is going to be desperate. GNiK's going to push really hard. He still sets up those rockets, you know, 1, 2, finish it off easy, like... Just an element of composure that Dooi definitely has over GNiK, and it's happened in both maps where he's just more patient, he's more composed, really. But yeah, that's where I was going with that one.
I think Dooi generally just had better awareness that time around too, because even when things were tied up 4-4 towards the end, it was, for example, Dooi once again who sprung the trap. It was GNiK wandering around the corner, taking a rocket to the face, with Dooi being better prepared, more eager and better positioned to land that first opening damage. So GNiK, I feel like, lacked a bit of awareness of some of these situations and exposed himself to quite a bit of unnecessary damage. And then, of course, that final situation really could have gone either way. Dooi landing the midi, going up the bounce pad to tie, or rather make it a tight frag so he can hang on to his lead. But GNiK, yeah, he made a good effort to mount a comeback, but Ketchup, this is something we said before the series even started, right? GNiK ever so close, but rarely able to close it down.
It is the ability to just finish it. I know that sounds almost naively vague in the context of this conversation, but he brings it so close every time. It can be quite the heartbreaker, and you almost fear that the longer we go, and the more often that starts to happen, that the more there might even start to be somewhat of a block. You know, some players do start to build somewhat of a mental block in those situations because, you know, it happens so many times, you almost start to expect it. But if you have what it takes to make it so close, you have what it takes to finish it. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
But we're going into our final map. We get to see the Awoken. It's going to be the BJ coming out from GNiK, but the Scale Bearer from Dooi. So I'm very, very interested to see what he does with this. And I'd love to see the Scale Bearer do well. This would be a great 3-0 for Dooi if he's able to get it. But GNiK, he's able to get maps. He is, by all means, able to get these maps. So we'll see if he can make it a 2-1 as we now go into Awoken.
Scale is always just such a joy to watch because he's a bit more of an exotic champion. You don't see him picked all that often, and he has such a unique play style that he just changes the matches completely. Now look at this though, GNiK extremely aggressive right off the bat. Definitely not wanting Dooi to be the first one to establish a lead, because if he lays down a Scale Bearer, someone with that amount of stack, you are in big trouble. Good rockets out of GNiK though, hanging on to the stack advantage. GNiK.
I almost feel like GNiK wasn't prepared for the bull rush there. The fact that when it got used so early, he was kind of just stuck in no man's land. However, not that it really matters at this point, because GNiK has a much superior stack as without pushing in. Gets the head off. Beautiful, beautiful play there. Just heading him off, knowing where he's going to go. Cuts him off and gets a 1-0, less than a minute in. Now that's the kind of start that GNiK needs.
Yes, but we've seen it before, right? GNiK getting frag 1 has happened, I believe, both of the previous maps, but still, dooi quick on the rebound. This is a dangerous play from GNiK, going for that heavy. If dooi catches him out right here, and indeed he will. Yeah, GNiK, he of course manages to deny the heavy. That's the silver lining right there. But when you have nothing and you know that your opponent just picked up Mega, that's such a risky opening.
Dooi's rockets this entire map have been completely and utterly phenomenal. It's not just this map though, it's the series. I think the rocket has been his star weapon. That's the two-piece combo. Thank you very much, dooi, for delivering that one. And it's the absolute bully factor of a talented scale bearer. The bull rush can set up complete disaster. And if you just don't have the stack, he will completely annihilate you. And here comes the push. More of it to finish, just the LG needed. The pain train cometh, and it looks like dooi's going to keep things going with this 5-2. We've only just hit 2 minutes, and he pushes in again. Wonderful direct from GNiK, and another direct. That's what he needed.
That was a beautiful play. The dual rockets coming out, so much damage, pinning his opponent in the air, and then just finishing it off with a beautiful midi as well. This is risky though, it will be a trade. Could have ended up better, could have gone a lot worse for GNiK as well. Still keeping it down to a 2-frag deficit. He's got a pretty good idea of where dooi's at right now.
Oh, not quite convinced that dooi was fully prepared for GNiK to just push in like that. Now, GNiK has been able to get himself that normal HP count now, up and running. Got himself some armor. Ah, dooi's looking to spring a trap. Being nice and patient here. Scale bearer, absolutely a champion where if he traps you and the bull rush is available, we've seen it before and we'll see it again probably.
dooi maintaining his lead. And also, look at that monstrous stack, of course, that you get when you're playing as a heavy champion. He's just gonna go in fully aggressively. I think he hinged the second part of his attack on landing that rail. If he had landed that shot right there, he would have no doubt just pushed in with LG, maybe even used the bull rush with a rocket. But missing that shot, he said the odds are not as much in my favor as I would have liked. Good rocket there, GNiK getting bounced downwards, dooi. Surely he wants to do more with this, but I like the rocket jump from GNiK, not giving a single pixel away when leaving the room. dooi though, patient on the plays. That rocket, good thing for dooi, that's still connected, or he would have been caught in a really bad spot right there.
Nice, and
that is a bit more of the experience coming out. If you compare that to that previous encounter that we pointed out, where GNiK just off the bat after getting the frag jumped onto heavy catch-up, dooi this time around knew it wasn't the right play to go for it, so he just waited and did a bit of damage. So I think that's just a bit of the experience coming out to play.
Yeah, and even that, the damage was dooi, knowing that he had the safety net of the teleporter, so the chance of a return fire was extremely unlikely if he just plays his cards right.
Yep.
And as we now push in, the bull rush is ready to go. GNiK getting a nice prediction. 2 rails, the danger of these larger champions. And he tanked a rail there. He had no health, absolutely no health, but he had armor and bull rush. And somehow the rail didn't finish him. I'm sure that was a rail, I think. I think so.
It was. It's the damage reduction. When you use the bull rush, you take so much less damage, and if you have got the armor to work with, you can take such a beating. Beautiful play from dooi. GNiK caught with his pants down, just absolutely not even looking back. And dooi is just piling on the damage right here, right now. Slight damage advantage, slight pickup advantage in terms of the item as well. But still, it's pretty close. GNiK absolutely has an opportunity for a comeback.
Pushes his way towards jump pad. GNiK, no one home there to challenge and fight for it. as Dewey continues this stack advantage that he's been working on for quite a while at the stage. A rare miss on the rail. Dewey has been often able to make these shots really count. That's a good rocket from GNiK, and he's using it as an opportunity to be quite aggressive. He wants to be in a position, actually popping the dual wield. He's going to push, and Dewey's going to go all or nothing. GNiK is able to get it, but he's tender now. Very, very tender indeed.
And Dewey knows this, looking to capitalize off this and counter as well. GNiK screamingly low once again. He made the right call, but he made it late. He went for Mega, but then he changed his mind and dropped back out of the room. But by that point, he still opened himself up to a fair bit of damage. So again, GNiK a slight overextension right there, and he's got to keep those to an absolute minimum if he wants to have a shot at still coming out on top in this final map.
And with there being 3 frags to take, it's definitely possible on Awoken to get that many frags in a tiny amount of time. But with the way that Dewey's been playing, and how insane... I mean, his ability to just go toe-to-toe with damage. Even if he's about to go down, he does so much damage that Scale Bearer simply respawn. You got a fresh stack. You're outstacking BJ. That rocket nearly hitting its mark and minimal damage. Scale Bearer's ability to just seize that heavy is pretty insane on this map. Definitely, I think maybe even one of the reasons that the Dewey picked it on this map is that the ability to take these really important items, and there's really, unless he's at death's door, there's not much you can do about it. Even with the dual wield and the damage that GNiK's able to put out there, who cares? Oh, almost a telefrag taking place, as both players have the same idea. Wait a minute. Both players rail a ball, and it's going to be GNiK getting the final hit there. But again, look at his lack of health. Needs to get some lights.
Confident play from GNiK right there. He knew it was railable, but he figured, you know, I'm feeling good about my aim. My opponent's also railable, and he is a larger target than I am. Plus, he has to dodge into me to get an angle. So, clever decision. Weighed his odds right there. Ruled that they were in his favor, and indeed they were. Good rocket there as well. Oh, it's a shame he didn't peek right afterwards, because Dewey got caught up on the door frame right there. The rocket just knocked him into the side of the door. And GNiK peeking with LG would have definitely gotten himself another frag right there, but just waited a bit too long. This should work out just fine though, as he is starting to close the gap. Just 1 frag behind Dewey.
The chase is on. The rail comes out, but no one home yet. Dewey playing this highly defensive game. I mean, a lot of this map, while Dewey's been, I think really at this point trying to prevent GNiK. He spent a lot of time in the center of the map. You know, he's looking for those opportunities to just get a good read on where he is, get some opening damage, trade it off. Ball rush is always available, always. And right as the Mega's been taken now, I mean, GNiK, he can't afford to take a fight. Really good spam. Wonderful spam. But is it enough? No.
Oh my goodness. That's a shame. That's a shame. GNiK worked so hard for that one. Oh, messing up the rocket jump as well. This is not looking good for a Canadian, exposing himself to an angle right there. Dewey will miss the LG on LG.
Oh.
I think GNiK knew that he needed to push that one if he wanted to have a chance, and it came down to the wire. Dewey lived with just 10 points of health right there. GNiK, that was hard fought. For the first time out of any map we've seen between these two players, it was actually GNiK who had the better item control, picked up more of the major items, but in the end, it still falls apart with 4 points of health. Dewey lands the kill shot. GNiK once again catch up, so close yet so far.
At the last hurdle, Flea. At the last hurdle every single time. And Dewey, he just plays this really efficient game. I can't outrun. The GG's comes through as the Scale Bearer, the Galactic Warlord. You love to see it. But Dewey putting it to perfect use. And it hasn't just been this, you know, this kind of gimmicky pick, this one-off pick. There's been some real method behind the way Dewey was going to approach that matchup. The ball rush used, not just in combat, like in the most traditional sense, I guess, but also to steal those items away without GNiK.
Yeah.
I mean, as you can see, GNiK, he did have a lot more of the heavies, but a bunch of the heavies that Dewey took were heavies that really stunted any momentum that GNiK had. And the bull rush just to go in and out was what allowed that to happen. Any other champion going in when dooi went in, they'd have been toast. Absolutely. But it's doi's ability usage. It's always been, I think, one of his greatest strengths is how he uses the abilities of any champion that he's picked. I said it at the start of the series that he was, I think, really, in my opinion, one of the first players in Quake Champions to really, I think, fully embrace the champion dynamic and what their abilities bring to the competitive table. And he crafted his game around that quite significantly, almost straight away. And there's still, like, even though it's no longer round bait and now it's time limit, there are still shades of that with how dooi plays modern duel. And it's like that, just so many of his bull rushes. I think every single one he used was calculated and game-changing. That's what dooi does.
Oh yeah, and definitely one of the best scale bearer players in the entire Quake Pro League. I think we can say that with certainty. A lot of players won't even touch the champion because he is a risky pick. Not as risky as Clutch, but still, he's difficult to get right, because if you land the bull rushes, you've got so much utility. You can escape tricky situations, you can do so much damage, close the gap, steal away items underneath your opponent's nose, so it is such a useful ability. But if you mess it up even so slightly, you're just a big hulking mess. Take on so much damage caught out in any bad situation. So dooi, one of the few players who dares master the scale bearer, and he's putting it to good use as well to secure himself the second 3-0 map, or matchup rather, that we have seen today, Ketchup.
Yes, it's been a dominant day so far. We saw Awoken taking a dominant win over Toxic, and now dooi with a 3-0 over GNiK. It's always, it's just unfortunate to see at this stage, because GNiK, like you said, and you've pointed out, he's so close. Almost every single week he gets, on a map-by-map basis, he's so close to securing it, but still is yet to secure it, unfortunately. But all things considered, I think doi's probably feeling really good about that one, especially those kind of like last-minute picks where he gets to rock a champion that I know he has a really good time playing, and I know a champion that he really enjoys, and gets a fantastic result from that one. But we've already had one interview of the day. We have a second with Freya. Once again, we're going to go for a quick break and set up our next matchup. Thanks for joining us so far. We'll be right back.